Tyler. How are you?
Hey Steve, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. It's good to finally meet you. How's everything been coming along?
Things have been going pretty decent. I just been going with your 1 month study schedule. And I've just been working a lot on the logic games, mostly because I feel pretty good about my like logical reasoning. So I just want to focus a lot more on my logic games and really trying to make sure that I can get the setups a little faster than I usually have. But I've also been doing a lot of Khan Academy. So I took two diagnostics with that, and I got like a 152 on the highest one. But that was with the regular time. But I recently applied for extra time, so now I'm getting a little bit more time. So I haven't done another diagnostic with the extra time. So, with that as well as just your study strategies, I'm hoping that it'll be a higher diagnostic, but I'm planning on taking it in June.
Cool. Great. Well, I'm glad you've been putting in the work. I'm glad you've taken some diagnostics and you've applied for extra time. Whether you get extra time or not is going to change a lot about how you prep. So I know they take a while to let you know those kinds of things. Do you
Oh,
have a
I've
sense?
gotten it already.
Oh, you got it. Okay, so you didn't just apply; you actually received it. So what?
Yeah,
Fantastic!
yeah,
Oh, fantastic! Oh, that's great. Awesome. You can see I take things literally, being that
yeah, you
LSAT
really
world,
do.
right? Cool, cool, awesome. So you're working on logic games, and what's right? You said that that's kind of your focus right now.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I've been doing that on the Law Hub, like those prep tests. But I think the biggest thing is I take way too long on the on setting up, and then whenever I do get my setup correctly, the thing that I'll mess up on is the question that says, if you substitute this rule, like what will have the same effect. So that probably is like the hardest question once I actually do get that set up correct.
got it. Well, that doesn't have to be the hardest question. I actually taught an entire class on rule substitution questions specifically because so many people find them difficult. And I get why, because it seems kind of weird outside the box. But
Mhm.
once you have the right framework going in, it can be a breeze. So I'd recommend that you check out that workshop if you haven't yet. Have you had a chance to take a look at that one?
I did take a look at it, and I think what it is that is still a little hard for me to understand is uh, it kind of looks like the relative sequencing, and whenever you are putting in like a new rule, like I noticed that you'll put in like the extra like arrow, and you do it in that way, and then whenever it still has like a 1 2 3 ordinal format to it. It's hard for me to visualize that going into 1 2 3. Am I are you understanding that? Or
Yes and no. I'll talk on the bigger picture here for a minute, which is that you referenced adding when I add something in,
hmm
but
right,
with rule sub we're not really adding in. It's like we're removing first and then adding something else.
right. But you still are trying to make sure that it's like the exact, I guess, effect.
Exact same consequence.
Right.
Now, just I want to make sure I fully capture what you said. So you were saying so. The part I wasn't totally sure about was the ordinal. So you're talking about there's the web style with the
hmm
branches versus the slots.
Right. It's difficult for me to whenever I'm writing out the rules and I'm doing it with the web, it's hard for me to then transfer the web to, can K be in the seventh spot?
Yeah. Okay, I hear what you're saying now. Now that to me doesn't relate to rule sub at all. It relates really more directly to just how are you interpreting these ordering game diagrams. And I'm
Okay.
not saying you have to do it one way or the other. They both have their benefits. And I believe that a hybrid approach is best depending on the nature of the rules. So the question is, can you take something that's very open and loose and relative and then make it increasingly strict with the slots as the map of what you're dealing with becomes more defined? So in other words, if they're being super specific, then you're going to want more slots. If they're being kind of vague, just before, after, and loose, then you're going to want to go for more of a web style.
Right. Okay.
And I have lessons in the course going over relative ordering, strict, and I show you how in certain contexts, but depending on the particular question, you'll start to narrow it down more to be more like the slot style. But again, this is just my approach. So if you go through the lessons and you practice it and it just is not clicking, there are other ways. Some people like the grid style. They like the table style.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and so if you end up liking that better, that's fine.
I guess, so whenever you make your initial deductions about, certain elements, and you have that question that's asking, if you remove this rule and substitute it for this rule, is that the correct answer choice should have the same deduction, correct?
It should. It should. Okay. It might look different. And so it might look different, but it'll mean the same thing. And to tie this back to the strict relative thing, I think what will serve you for rule sub is if you get more comfortable modifying and playing with what your diagram looks like. Like basically, the games come down to flexibility. So rule substitution can seem tricky because it kind of throws a wrench into everything you were doing, where you've got to understand the logic even if things look different. Mm-hmm. And with relative order in games, as they give you more information and it becomes more defined, it's going to start to look different. And so one thing that trips people up with relative order in games is when you have a really long branch just because of how you've set up your diagram in the first place. Mm-hmm. So if the branch is short, you'll think, okay, these things are close to each other on this specific diagram. If the branch is long, you might think they're far away from each other on a specific diagram for a specific scenario, but in reality, they don't have to be.
Gotcha. And also with the scenarios, are you always trying to, find that most restricted element and then base a scenario or multiple scenarios with each game? Or are there just going to be some games where like you just won't find scenarios and you just kind of have to make 2 or 3 deductions and like go with the questions?
There's rarely and always with games. So there's going to be, or with anything on the LSAT. So there's going to be plenty of situations where there's not a whole lot of inferences you can do up front, and you'll do more work over the course of the game. And that's just how it is.
Okay. I guess my last thing, I noticed that you said the way that I'm going to study is going to be a lot different with extra time. So can you just expound more on what you meant by that?
Well, it comes down mainly to just taking more time for your practice tests. So do you have time and a half?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's the most common that they'll grant. So that means instead of 35-minute sections, 53-minute sections. You probably already know that, given that you got the extra time, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing that changes, is that your sections are longer, your full-length exams are longer. Do they give you a break as well?
Yes. Yeah, you get, I think you get 2 breaks.
2 breaks. Awesome. Well, I mean, that they're the specifics of extra time can vary. Not everybody has the exact same accommodations for extra time. So,
gotcha. Okay.
So I would double check to confirm.
Let me check.
I would double check that, because 2 breaks with time and a half would be surprising to me. I would guess they only give 1, but anything's possible depending on the circumstances. But you want to know inside out exactly what your accommodations are so that every single practice test you take has those in mind.
Is there no benefit from trying to still do the 35 just to see if, whenever the actual test day comes, like you might feel a little quicker and like you'll have more time to, I guess, review? Or should I just study all of my practice tests with the exact time that I get on test day?
I would do the majority of them the exact same way it'll be on test day. If you want to push your limits a little bit and take an exam under regular standard circumstances just to see what that'll be like, yeah, there could be some benefit there. I wouldn't say there's zero benefit, but I also wouldn't want you to overly stress yourself out, since you know for a fact that's not what you're going to be doing.
Right.
But to do it a little, so let's say instead, maybe a middle ground could be, instead of giving yourself the full 53 minutes per section, as an exercise, maybe as a one-off, if you wanted to give yourself 45 minutes just to see what that would be like versus the 53, even that alone would be significant. I mean, every minute matters. So it's definitely gonna feel different. And if you do the 45 and you find that you're in a time crunch, you're gonna say, hey, well, I'm really glad I have the 53 because that makes a big difference.
Okay. Let me see if I have any other questions. No, I don't think I have any other questions.
Well, it was great to connect with you. Anything comes up, feel free to reach out. I'm glad to help.
Okay, thank you so much from your help. And yeah, I'm benefiting a lot from your study schedule. So I really just appreciate all that you do. I check all of the emails too that I get. So thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.